Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
So, Fallout 76 has been out a week now, and I have just under 70 plus hours on the game, and I wanted to talk to you guys about what I thought on the game so far and what I think is coming next. So I've completed Fallout 76 in just under a week, and when I say complete, I mean I've done all the things I wanted to do with the game, and what the main features were. I feel as if I can give a full honest review of the game, as I've practically done most of its features. Most reviews online are people that haven't sunk their teeth into the game for long enough to give an accurate review. And for that, I think, if you are considering buying the game, please watch loads of reviews, have a read, and listen to my full in-depth review of the game. You shouldn't really listen to people that haven't had any playtime in the game and decide if you want to buy it. This is a list of things that I want to do in the game. Now, it took me just under a week to achieve these goals I set myself in the game, and once I killed the Queen, I got back to camp and I sat there and thought to myself, what now? And I sat back and thought about my experience. Also, while doing this, I decided to play the game solo for a little bit. These are all my opinions and views about Fallout 76 and the future. Please note, these are my opinions, please respect them as I would respect yours. If not, would you kindly fuck off? Whether you like this discussion or not, these videos and conversations are out here for a reason. If you don't like this sort of thing, it's easily avoidable. These talks are going to stay here for a very long time, if not for the game's lifespan and after. These conversations are healthy, but what isn't healthy is when people get triggered because of someone's opinion. Calling people to be banned, personal insults and saying people's opinion don't mean anything. Unfortunately, when people get like this, it's because brain.exe has stopped working, and they have no more logical answers other than I don't like what you're saying so I'm going to insult you. Unfortunately, for the hardcore fanboys of the game, this is a product to the masses, and therefore is open to criticism. Nothing no one can say can stop me saying this. Now with that being said, I'll praise where it is to be given, and criticise to where it is to be criticised. I'm a really big fan of Fallout and the franchise, but I will not sit there and praise because of that reason. Now I'm trying to get the really important bits that I think we should talk about. I would love to talk about everything, but I don't think you would sit and listen. If I talked about everything in this one video, it would be hours long. If that's something you want, I'll make up follow videos. So let's get right into it. So, after I killed the Queen, which seemed like an impossible challenge, with 5 to 6 other guys, I sat there and wondered to myself, what have I just spent the last week playing, and have I just wasted my time and money? I spent a good few hours pondering my thoughts to try and figure out how I felt about the game, and this is what I came up with. Fallout 76 is a very interesting game. While I love things about the game, there's a lot of things I really hate about it. And unfortunately, as much as I want to say amazing things, I think there's far too much bad things, improvements and implementing that the game needs. Now, one of the biggest things for me was the lack of decent quests and diverse NPCs. This is one of the biggest downfalls to the game. Because most of the story is done through holotapes, notes and terminals, it wasn't engaging at all. Now, yes, there were some robots that talked to you, but they had no interaction with the player. They just said their bit and that was that. And after a while, it just got repetitive and boring to the point where I stopped doing all the quests altogether, unless it was worth me doing them. I didn't read any of the notes, I just picked them up if I was asked to, and I just unloaded any holotapes because they were just boring, and it took away from the magic of finding holotapes in the first place. I found the NPCs started to feel like an MMO NPC compared to your normal Fallout NPC. That for me was very disappointing. It's the same for the traders. It was as if they was just there as a placeholder. Even the BOS and the Enclave story was terribly done, so plain and boring, and I only did it because I wanted the end reward of nukes and ultrasight power armor. I think one thing that really baffles me is the fact they said every human NPC has died, and it makes no sense to me whatsoever. For me, the only reason they did this because it was very lazy when they was making this, which I'll come on to on a later bit. It really makes no sense to me why two of the strongest factions in the game can both get wiped out and not survive at all. It just seems really strange to me. The fact there's only a few types of enemy NPCs, it was pretty easy to figure them out, and they wasn't very smart at all. And after a while, they just got very boring to look at too. For me, having this many problems so far with the story and quest, it just really didn't engage with me at all, to the point where I didn't even want to go back and read them, or even look on Wiki or YouTube about them. Simply, this Fallout has no decent story to immerse yourself in. The fact you're chasing dead people's note around felt like I was playing a massive game of Cluedo, and that is something I didn't pay for. The fact you did some quest to eventually be able to nuke somewhere, and that just seemed really meh. I hate. Even though I did enjoy the nukes, I just feel as if they needed to add that to try and make the story better. Like, for example, the end of Fallout 4, if you side with the Brotherhood, you get an epic talk by Maxim like this is everything you've been doing and it has been leading up to this. Big finale, and it was epic. Whereas leading up to the nuke, there's no speech or anything, it's just find the code, nuke somewhere, the end. One thing I hope is that future DLC will bring human NPCs and they will add dialogue options, because I really think that it would help bring the game back to life. I think Bethesda has managed to make the worst boring quest I've ever done in game, and that is going to the DMV and getting your ID. The fact you have to go through a realistic waiting line and get all the right documents just made this quest really annoying, long, and everyone I've taken hates it as well. Bethesda, please make decent RPG and not waiting in line simulator.
Before I get 250, you can have all the pieces if you want to.
Quest completed. Please do not tell me that's the only the only quest. Please do not tell me that. No! I've got a power armor station. I've earned it. I've got the power.
You run the power armor station.
I paid a thousand caps for that.
Well, we spent 2 days grinding making screws.
Here.
For this piece of shit.
Tim.
Wow.
I put those T60 parts back. You can have them.
Wow.
I was just kidding anyway.
Nah, you're good. I appreciate it.
Chemistry workbench. Oh no,
that was
know
that was premature. Random encounter perk is one thing I've missed. Like, in this game, nothing weird and random happens. Like, yes, a prize bot might show up and give you a random prize, but it doesn't beat what happened in the other games. Like aliens randomly appearing or a super mutant that sells tumbleweed. Just random things like that could have helped fill up the game. It's hard to find a reason why they went with the way they did, but what I do know is Bethesda become very lazy. When it comes down to PvE, I think that once again they've been really lazy. Now the combat still feels Fallout-ish, but the AI lack a lot of work. They lack real intelligence and they seem to be less diverse than previous games. The AI are very easy to rush through even at a higher level. The only time I struggled was when I wasn't equipped with my usual gear. I felt like legendary creatures and diseased creatures really didn't stand out as much or was a bigger threat, and I wasn't really rewarding. Now moving on to the main mini-boss, the Scorched Beast. They are probably one of the worst made buggy creatures I've fought against in a long time. The fact that it only does a few things in the fight sequence just makes it very tedious and boring. It seems like a very simplified Skyrim dragon. Its main screech attack is very loud and annoying. The fact that it has the ability to travel through most objects and buildings makes it very hard to find cover, to heal, and to micromanage items to your team. Its AoE gas attack doesn't really do much. It tries to act as a crowd control ability, but it does a very bad job at it. When it attacks on the ground, it does one animation, and that's a swipe animation, and it's not really much of a threat either. Sometimes it brings a Scorch to try and help it out, and again, they're not much of a threat. There's a lot of things that could make these fights a lot more enjoyable and more fun to part in. 1. Add a new type of creature that comes with it, like the Scorched Hound or something. You could also add this stage where if you do enough damage, he will fly away, and while he does, he could spawn a horde of Scorched Beasts and Hounds you have to deal with before he gets back. Also, you could add an attack where he picks up a player and flies off, and then drops them. With this, you could have equal opportunity for the player to do extra damage. You could also add an attack where he does an insta-kill attack, where he might squish or send out an AoE attack that insta-kills you. Or he could do a hit that sends a player flying, or a few players flying, that sort of thing. Now the risk to reward ratio of fighting this these are very bad. The main thing that is good XP and you get a decent amount of it. Now the loot you receive can vary. It can be very good or really average. Or, in my case, the first one I fought, I didn't receive any loot and lost quite a lot of supplies. Now I do like events in this sort of game. What I don't like is that most of the event missions are very boring and very repetitive. There's no diversity with them. There are a few that I like the Civil War reenactment. This one is one of my favourites, and one where the Enclave end up bombing the areas to purge the place. But the events where you have to get items and fill up the hoppers and similar events are very boring and repetitive, and tedious as well. They could have got a lot more creative with them, but once again, they have been lazy, which I'll get onto a little bit later. I would love to have seen an event which took you across different places, having you do different objectives and similar to be able to have completed it. For me, this is a place they really messed up. For a universe set on war and violence, the lack of player conflict baffles me. It's as if they wanted everyone to leave the vault and be as happy as they can, rebuilding society and be friends. And that is not the case in Fallout. There's always going to be conflict in Fallout, but in 76, they want it so you both have to agree to a duel. Not only is that immersion breaking, it also takes a huge factor away from survival. I found that engaging in PvP was really fun, even if we lost. The fact you only lose junk you can get back really easy is quick and a positive for me. I don't understand why so many players hate it. Now if it was me, I'd make it a lot different. But if I had one thing I would remove, it would be the slap system altogether, and allow players to have better interaction with each other, which would lead to better roleplay. Now I'm doing a huge video on this topic next, so stay tuned, it's going to be a big one. Even though Bethesda has implemented things to turn you away from murdering other players, I still try and gank players, and it's a real big satisfaction of murdering other players. It's amazing, even if it takes ages. With all this in place, all it will do is make high-level murderers hunt really low-level players like I did. I was bored of searching for parts, so I found a really low-level lonely player, and I started chinking away at him. He ignored me, and eventually died. And I found all the last pieces I need, and I was happy. Now the PvP is quite balanced in the game, and even though he couldn't have killed me, he still had a decent chance of killing me. And I really enjoyed murdering him. But like I said, my next video is going to be PvP experiment. Now people probably will turn around and say, oh, there's a radio channel for that sort of thing. But in response to that, I don't want to have to go searching for a random victim who wants to do the same. I just want to murder how I see fit. I feel as if PvP is aimed towards more people who hate PvP and cry about it more than thinking about everyone else. Now, when Bethesda removed all the human types of NPCs, it made the world feel real empty, to the point where running into every place was near identical and nothing different. This took a huge essence away from Fallout. The feeling of walking into a camp and random things happening, like a murder and the police surrounding, and this conversation and just really cool interactions with the NPCs. It felt so nice to go out into the wasteland after and explore. But come back to some sort of human interaction. Now Bethesda made up a really big map and didn't really populate it well. I feel as if there's not much to explore when you go into locations. A lot of the buildings are all boarded up and made the map feel even more empty. I feel like having a bigger area and more detailed places to explore could have made up for the lack of NPCs. Also, there's not really a big city to explore. Well, there's Watauga, but I feel as if it could have been a lot bigger and a lot more in depth. I feel as if the weather, it could have been a lot more active, like different types of storms and rains, and Radstorm could have been more active. It would have made the world feel more hostile. The endgame raid is pretty easy, as long as you bring enough supplies to chug through the endless amount of robots they throw at you, gaining no experience in the process. Eventually, once you've made it through the raid and to the launch center, you get to enter your code. Now, what Bethesda made the mistake of doing is not making the code a unique code for that server. We came across this problem where our nuke code didn't work, and we nearly gave up till one of our friends searched up and looked on YouTube, and we used someone else's code that was already used. So, technically, you could launch as many nukes as you wanted. Now, launching a nuke at any place is not really worth it unless you just want to mine ultrasite and fight the average high-level enemies. The best place to nuke is the prime nuke sites, so you can get the queen and do her. But again, risk-reward, not really worth it to be honest. And once you've done that, you've practically finished the main game. All that's left, really, is PvP, looting, and maybe some quests. I would like to say that this is one feature that I really like about the game. From the start, I didn't think I'd use it that much, but now I've started to use it a lot, and I really like the fact that your pictures make up the loading screen. It's a great way to show off your stories in the wasteland. Also, a great way to get YouTube thumbnails. Now, moving on to the community of Fallout 76. Personally, from what I've experienced and seen, shocks me. Currently, I'm in 2 Fallout groups, the Enclave and the Fallout Survivor group. Now, the Enclave I'd have no problems with, and everyone's nice, but this other group, Jesus, it's full of toxic, snowflakes, crybabies, and genuine people I think shouldn't be playing this type of game, or for games in general. This group have people posting about pointless things, crying about PvP, crying in general, and just generally salty people, including one very salty admin. Now, when I joined this group, the game wasn't out, so everybody was speculating about it, and everyone seemed fine until we got close to the game's launch, and the beta came out. That was when we started to see groups forming. Now you have 3 groups. The pro-elitists of the game that will defend it no matter what. You have the anti-elitists that despise the game no matter what. And then you have the people in between who think logically and actually want to have a discussion. Now, over the coming weeks leading up to launch, I've encountered a lot, and I mean a lot, of salty people crying about the most outrageous things. Now, I've been known in the group as Mr. Negative, hating on the game. And I've had people wanting me banned and kicked out of the group and insulting me just because I disagree with them about their beloved game, that they think is a masterpiece. Now, yes, I respect your opinion, and yes, I hope you enjoy the game, but you can fuck right off if you're not going to respect mine. The internet and forums are supposed to be the freest place in the world, and it seems like it's not becoming that way anymore. To me, it's starting to feel like a huge majority are starting to turn into SJWs and feminists and making it all political. And that's what's ruining the game. So I'd just like to jump in and just explain the situation that happened on this picture so everyone can understand. Now, as you can see on screen, these are all the rules of the group, and I did nothing wrong. I didn't break any of these rules whatsoever. She claims that I broke a rule, but in reality, all I was doing is giving someone advice, shopping advice they were going to spend their hard-earned money on, and she thought I was trying to turn it into a console wars, when in fact I wasn't. And the guy even messaged me personally to tell me that he agreed with me. But yeah, this is the stuff she said, and this is why I'm generally shocked that people like her are in power when she's just being a bitch, really, abusive power bitch. So you know. Yeah, so it seemed that even if you don't break any rules, the admins are always right, and that's not the case in reality. And yeah, big fuck you. In reality, yeah, you know. Now, moving off topic, I've recently had another run-in with this admin about another thing, and she abused her powers for no good reason. This is the reason she muted me. Now, when it comes to PC and console, it seems like there's really big hate for PC players, especially in this group. And even herself is a PC gamer and goes on to say what she says. It's mind-blowing to me. Now, I know this is going to sound sexist, but people like her should not have admin powers. And I wasn't breaking any rules, she just thought she was a smart ass. And people like her and the rest of them are what are killing communities and the freedom of speech. Because they're salty, or easily offended, can't accept facts, and get easily triggered. Or they have power. Now, moving on to the better experience. I met a group of players across all platforms, and they're a really nice group of players. And we can sit and talk and discuss things without people getting salty or mad about it. Just because what someone said is different, and different to what they think. Now, when private servers drop, the opportunity for roleplay will be endless. You can create the server and community that you want, and like-minded players will join you. I feel like we can have a proper roleplay experience, and I'm excited to see it come to life. And ultimately, I think this is what's going to save the game and bring more players. From the technical aspect of the game, it's just a giant mess. There's loads of problems that need fixing, like AI stretching, floating, T-position, and many more bugs, the list goes on. Now, all these bugs should have been fixed from the game's launch, and they haven't. And we're already 2 patches in. And this keeps happening. Also, power armor glitches, carry weight glitches, items disappearing out of inventories, and plenty of other bugs, which I don't have the time to go over, but if you look on the forums and other sites about 76, you'll see all sorts of bugs. A lot of these bugs could have been sorted. I feel as if a lot of the problems with this game is to do with the power of Bethesda's engines, and its limitation to be able to handle this sort of things. I feel as this has caused a lot of problems. Also, there are a lot of reused assets from the game, and pretty much 90% of the assets are the same as Fallout 4, excluding a few new ones. I feel as if they could have made changes to the existing assets to make them look new and different and refreshed. In reality, 90% of the work has already been done for them. They had a small 10% they needed to work really hard for. The answers was right in front of them this whole time. There's a few things I think that need to be added and changing. Now, due to limitations of the engines, some of these might not be possible. I think the cap size should get an expansion. By upgrading your camp, you unlock more space and better features. I feel as it would make players be more creative. I think the stash size should also get the ability to be upgraded, which will help a lot of players out. And there's a lot of players that are not good at micromanaging their storage. The ability to scrap legendary items and maybe earning something from them that you can put on other weapons to make them legendary would be a huge benefit instead of having to take them out of your inventory and just drop them on the floor. I think they need to add storage that isn't bound to your stash size. Not only will this help players out, I think it would give a good reason to raid bases. I think one thing that I really want is a faction/guild patch where you have the ability to make clans and guilds and have one joint camp together. Also, joining fractions of your choice, getting perks, and the ability to have faction wars is something I really want to see in the game, as it would make more content and add things to do like map control and open PvP. I think Fallout 76 has had one of the worst receptions for a video game in a long time. There's even a source to say it might be one of the worst reviewed games in 12 years. And that is saying something. I think with all the negativity surrounding the game, it has caused the game to drop in price. Not only that, people have gone to go get a refund because of how bad and boring the game is.
No store credit. I want my money back. There's nothing that I can do about it. That's just their policy. Like, it won't even come back in as a return for a brand new game. It's when I scan your receipt, it's going to see when this one was bought, and it's going to automatically give you trade credit. I'm really getting pissed off right now. I'm really getting pissed off. How you doing today, sir? Thank you for calling GameStop. This is Brian. How can I help you? I have to just check out your system.
Hi, welcome to GameStop. We just do a little process of remodeling.
I feel as if the more people play it and the more people express their opinions, there's a trend starting to rise and people are seeing Fallout 76 for what it really is. I've tried to compare my experience to other experiences and I've had only one thing I can come up with, and that is a badly early release Minecraft/Gmod server. They have taken a good game mode and tried to modify it to make it better and completely messed it up. Or you end up playing on it for a few hours and then after a while you go, now what? While it still feels like a Fallout experience, they have removed a lot of what made it Fallout and all the Fallout essence is gone. It also doesn't help that the community of 30k plus members can't have a civilized conversation with what's going on and off with each other, making this community very toxic because of people's views. And it's sad really, and it's the same for gaming in general. It's sad to see that the golden age has passed and heading into a dark place. Despite what people's opinions are on the game, we need to clean up the community and make it a better place for everyone. Personally, I think it was a massive test for them and for Fallout 5. With this sort of feedback they are having, I think they will stay clear from multiplayer styled games, and it's sad because their other online Fallouts are really fun to play. Fallout Online and New Vegas MP. It's not that Bethesda doesn't know how to make a good game. It's not that Bethesda doesn't know how to make a multiplayer game. It's not like Bethesda didn't have all the information right in front of them to make this game. They could have made this be one of the best of both worlds for everyone. I hope for Fallout 5 they have a single player experience, which Bethesda is known for, with the option of co-op and maybe an online mode, but they need to make sure they get it right. Now, before I end this, I wanted to add some positivity to my thoughts. The main one being that I've made friends that I can say made my experience playing this game a whole lot better compared to if I was playing this game alone, or with some randomly met people in game. With that, I've managed to join and help grow a little community of like-minded players into something good. While I still have a really big hate for what Bethesda has done and released, I will still play this game because for some reason I feel like I need to find something in-game. Now, my opinion hasn't changed yet, and while I own the game and still play it, I won't recommend it to anyone, and I'll always destroy the game in an argument, because right now, that's what the game and the studio deserve until the game is fully fixed. The game is still fresh, and I'm still exploring, but I don't feel like I can explore for much longer, and I think by that time, the game will have died, and it will be left in the dust. For my final thoughts on the game, I will say I do like the game and some of its features. What I won't do is sit there and let Bethesda steal everyone's money. Even if a couple of people watch this and it changes their mind, I'll be happy. With all my thoughts and time in game, I feel as if this game was massively rushed and half-heartedly created and pushed out before it was ready. This game is missing so many features and made some choices that really have negatively impacted the game. Not only that, but the fact that most of the assets and animations are already from previous games, including Skyrim. It is so lazy and poorly produced that they can sit there and justify £50 for the standard edition is just damn right mind-blowing and quite scummy. It is just as bad as them charging the same price for Fallout VR. Bethesda has started going downhill and started following the paths of EA and such companies. With this being said, games just feels like this is a massive asset flip with a mod combined together. To me, this is just a mod for Fallout 4, and I feel like a decent mod team could have done a better job. With that being said, well, I do feel as if private servers will solve all the problems of the stock game, and with the help of mods, it will enhance the game even further. Ultimately, what I think this game should have been was an open source roleplay game like Dark RP. I do think this is a demo and a test for Fallout 5, and I think if they listen to everything, they could be on for a winner. The game feels like a very cheap whiskey that hasn't been left in the barrel long enough to ferment. All I really want for the next Fallout is a single player with the option, some form of multiplayer and co-op. I don't feel as if the base game can offer me anything else other than PvP and looting and spec building for now, so that's what I'll be concentrating on. Like I've said before, it's an okay game, nothing special, but it's a terrible Fallout. Personally, I'd wait a bit before you buy the game and wait for it to drop in price, because I think it could be a really enjoyable game, but dark times are ahead of us for the title. Let's hope Bethesda can fix it before it's too late. Last thing we want is another DayZ, and we all know how that turned out. Ultimately, you're the only person that can and should decide whether they want to buy the game, and that is you. I'm not giving up hope yet on the game. I'm just super disappointed with everything. Let's just have a moment of silence for Fallout 76. made it to the end, I just want to say a massive thank you for taking your time out to spend time listening to me. If you agree with me or not, comment in the comment box below and I'll have a talk with you. If you agree with me, please share this video and get it out to as many people as you can. Even though my views is negative on Fallout, I'll be releasing more videos on it. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the wasteland.